morning, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of SoulSpace presented by Einar, the Insight Room, where we pause, breathe a little deeper, and hold heartfelt conversations on belief, balance, and the deeper side of life. Today, we are privileged to begin this journey with Professor Neharika Vohra, esteemed faculty at IIM Ahmedabad, founding Vice-Chancellor at the Delhi Skill Entrepreneurship University, and one of the foremost voices on organizational behavior in India. She is also the co-author of the widely respected textbook Organizational Behaviour with Stephen P. Robbins and Timothy A. Judge, a work that has shaped how countless students and professionals understand people, teams, and organizations. Across decades as a teacher, researcher, mentor, and institution builder, Professor Vohra has explored how people think, feel, and grow in organizations, in society, and within themselves. Her work on leadership, change, and inclusion and human potential remind us that every transformation outside begins with the awareness on the inside. Beyond titles and roles, she continues to guide students, professionals to lead with empathy, authenticity, and courage, to build careers that are not just successful, but deeply meaningful, not just to themselves, but others around them. Welcome, ma'am. It's an absolute honor to have you with us today for this very first episode of Soul Space. The space is now yours.
Thank you, Srijin, and thank you, Akash, for this beautiful introduction. And I wish you all the best for your journey.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I'm on.
So, ma'am, without further ado, we would like to, you know, uh, say this very in a very plain way. That, ma'am, this is a very casual conversation. So we've not clearly created any script. And since the very idea that we started this podcast was that, so this podcast is of six different series. One of us is with BizTalks Unplugged, this with which we began the podcast itself, and we launched several others, including the Civic Talks, the Fino Talks, the Soul Space as is part of it. And in this conversation, we basically would love to know of the guests in particular, more so about the insight or the actual way that person thinks or what decisions that individual has made in his life, in his or her life, which has taken them to the position of today. Because when a person really speaks on a public platform, he or she projects oneself in a very in a way that is like the rains which come from the cloud. So we hope to aspire that we perhaps be able to move beyond those clouds and be able to see the magnificent sun, which is we see it today. So, ma'am, before we begin with the questions that we have prepared, which is generally linked to you and the subject that you hold mastery of, uh, we would very much love to know, ma'am, as to can you tell us something about you, like your early life in particular? What was your childhood like? And what were the frameworks that made you? How was your family structure? What was, if you
and
recall?
and just a little bit make it something raw, because what we learn, what we hear from the something others, we used to think something a buttery, like we just want to know that we have struggled so much, and your all the things that makes your decision perfect, how you became like this, and from the context of Indian thing. So we think to know what on the raw line of things.
All right. Let me attempt and see what I can say. So I grew up as the second child of a family, which, like many others at that point of time, were really committed to making sure that their children did well. So my father came from a very large family, and while at some point they had been well off, but at the time he was growing up, he had seen many hardships. And so I think his sole goal or ambition in life was that his children should do well and they should get the best of the education. And it was in that spirit that he actually ended up moving from Punjab and Himachal, where their homes were, where my mom and dad's homes were, to Orissa, because when he came to admission to give an interview to in Rourkela for his first job, for one of his jobs. He just thought that the city was amazing, the township was amazing, the schools were good, and he said, well, if that's what it takes for my children to have good education, he moved us there. He moved himself, my mother and he, and all of us, we were there. And so from small towns in Punjab and Himachal, we moved to Orissa, and really far away from everybody else. My mother similarly came from a really, really large family, and they both took that decision to for us in a way, and so we as grew up in a nuclear family with a lot of vacations every summer or winter to our grandparents and our cousins and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, we were also a unit which operated in a small town in Orissa, Rourkela, and that's where we were. My sister, who's older than me, and my brother, who's younger than me. My brother was actually born in Rourkela, and that is how we grew up in our, with all the what shall I say? We were a family which was completely steeped in the fact that we had to get good education, and I think, and yet with a lot of values and what is right, what is wrong, importance to family, importance to everything. So it's a curious mix of our parents who on one hand made a decision to leave their families and the comfortable lives for their children and for themselves, and on the other hand, they took a lot of decisions that were really also good for the entire family. So, it wasn't like either or, you did both at all times. Yeah, so yeah, we grew up as I said, in Rourkela, and Rourkela is a town of people who all were connected to the steel making of the nation. And at that point of time, these were the temples of modernity across the country. And we grew up in a cosmopolitan town. In the little lane that we lived in, there were people from at least 8 different states of India. And so you ended up, um, um, celebrating every single festival of every single state, because that is how it was. And because Rourkela Steel Plant was also formed with a partnership with the Germans and the Russians. Actually, they were both who had played a role. So in our lane, there was also one German auntie. Because she, one of the uncles who worked in the steel plant, would gone to Germany for training, had met this woman, had brought her, and they had gotten married, and she lived in our lane. So you really had a very diverse, very a place where you just differences were the norm, similarity was not. And ambition was the norm. And so I studied in a girls' school, and all girls' school and an all girls' college, until my bachelor's. And the first time I actually studied in co-ed was when I went to do my master's in Bhubaneswar. But and all my school friends who were part of my girls' school today, at least 20 of them are doctors, and they're engineers, and they're CAs, and they're teachers, and so it's a very, very, so we're all nearing 60 right now, but pretty much all my friends are professionals, and they have continued with their careers, through their lives. So it's a group of, so we were really blessed in that sense, because we had so much that was available to us as we were growing up. So, and was it was blessed because we had the right values. Did we have money? No. Yeah. You basically really, I mean, we had salad. Our dads got salaries. Our moms worked very hard to make sure that the salary was sufficient for the children to have a good life. But it did not mean that, you could just on a women fancy buy a dress or a women fancy go somewhere. It had to be planned. And uh, and that I think has been again a very good thing because you understand the value of everything that is available to you in that entire process. So I would say, and I don't think because everybody in our township was like that, I don't think any one of us ever thought that we were poor or rich because we were just, that's how everybody was. So it was fascinating. So when I was in class 10, I got really excited. I don't know, I read something and I studied and I asked somebody, what is this? And they said, oh, this is psychology. And so when right after I finished my class 10, when all my friends were making their own decisions about what they will study, and of course it was expected that we will all study science, I said I wanted to study psychology. And my dad and mom said, we have no clue what psychology is. And I said, I don't have any clue either, but it seems like an interesting subject, and that's what I want to study. And again, they said, okay, if that's what you want to do, if you're going to be on your own, if you promise that we will not help you. We have nothing to help you with because we have no clue about it. You study, and if it's that what you want to do, you do. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And that's exactly what I did. I studied psychology in my plus two, in my BA, in my master's, in my PhD. And so similarly, when I wanted to, come to Bhubaneswar to study because it was a center for advanced study in psychology at that time, again, my dad said, are you sure you want to continue to do this? Why don't you prepare for being an IS officer? I said, no, 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 I want to teach and I want to be in academics and I want to study more of what I'm studying. And so he said, but we will only let you go if you get a hostel. And of course, I would get a hostel. So I got a hostel room. And that's what I did. Did my PhD, I did my master's. And then when I finished my master's, and I'm talking about really long time ago, 86, yeah, you could write what is called the JRF, which is, or the UGC net, to get an admission into a PhD program. And so I wrote it and I qualified, and I had a professor, my own professor said, there's a professor in Baroda who's very good. Maybe you should do your PhD under her. So I said, okay. So we spoke to that professor, and that professor said, yes, I could be interested, but you'll have to come to Baroda to meet me. And so I said, okay. So I told my dad that, I've qualified for UGC NET, so I'm to go to Baroda. And he said, okay, then let's book tickets. I said, why? I'll book tickets. And he said, by train, huh? So he said, well, I'll come with you. I said, are you going to do the PhD? He said, no. And I said, then I will go. Why would you go with me? So, and my dad said, yeah, that's true. If you're confident, you go. Yeah. So actually from all the way from Bhubaneswar to Baroda, I found out what train to take. I took a train, I got there, I did my interview with the professor, and she was super nice. And she made me stay at her home itself. And then she offered me a position. But in the meantime, I also met another professor from Canada who said, I'm going to give you, if you're interested, you can apply to, Manitoba, University of Manitoba, where he came from, to do your PhD. And I said, yeah, that's very good. I would like to, I'm interested, but I will not write GRE. And he said, why will you not write GRE? I said, look, I'm already a very good student. You know that I'm a good student. You've already seen my work. And my grades are very good. And I think GRE and all this is very, it's only meant for people, these are American tests, and so why should I as an Indian take it in that sense? And so if you can get me admission without GRA, I'll get, I'll come. So he went away. He was here for a Indo-Shastri project. He was an Indo-Shastri fellow. I was his RA at that time, just after I finished my master's. And 3 months later, he wrote, well, I have argued for you at the university, and they've agreed to give you admission without a GRA. And that's how I got my admission into into University of Manitoba in the PhD in psychology. And of course, my father and mother were both very worried, and they said, are you sure you want to go? We don't have the kind of money that if something happens, we may not be able to come and see you, and so on and so forth. I said, that you don't worry about, I'll take care of myself. I think I should be okay with it. And so my dad said, okay, I mean, if you're confident, go. And that's exactly what I did. Yeah, and the first time I traveled to Canada was the first time I ever stepped on a plane from Delhi. I'd never been on a plane until that time. And so that was, that's how I got to Canada. Of course, I studied there. 5.5 years later, I came back to, and it was very clear I wanted to come back to India after I finished my PhD and work in India. And that again, that's exactly what I did. As soon as I finished my PhD, I came back to India and I found a job in that. So maybe I'll stop here. That's like a little part of my story.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that with us. So, we move forward to some of the current questions that have recently come up. So, ma'am, after observing so many organizations over your decade-long experience, what is one behavioral trend in the Indian workspace that worries you as of today?
So I don't know if it is something that is across all organizations, but I really think that it's something that I think stands out for me, is that we as managers, as leaders, and so on and so forth, don't seem to be thinking long term, and we seem to be not focused on detailed planning, and this whole idea of we'll do it and we'll wing it. And of course, we've been successful and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think we could have our productivity per person or per rupee is pretty much is very low. So as a country, we have so many people, we have so many organizations, and so much of all of that. And yet, I don't think we get the highest productivity from people. You could go walk into a mall today, or you could walk into a small private held shop, and the person will be on their phone, watching a reel, watching something, and they will not even look up to you. And so, one thing you can think that they are really, he or she is an employee and they're not really concerned. But even owners, somebody who runs a small establishment, will be more focused on, finishing whatever they're doing, rather than actually springing up and saying, okay, what do you want? And to me, there is a complacency, and there is a certain level of lack of detail, attention to detail, and attention to planning. And as a result, our productivity is much lower than what we possibly could with the kind of talent and the kind of smart people that we have. I don't think we get the best out of them. On one hand, on the other, I think one thing that worries me, and I won't say it's across organizations, but across a lot of people that I meet, including younger students and including managers and so on and so forth, there is a hope that can I find a hack? Can I find a shortcut to, to
Or
success, to greatness, to money, to comfort, to blah blah, all of that? And to me, if that is our mindset, how do we create excellence? Yeah, you don't bring excellence by shortcuts. For that, you need to really work hard. You do better every time, and that is something that I don't see many of our people look at. So there are people who work very, very hard. I have no doubt about it, and I see that all the time. But there is a certain psyche of wanting a shortcut. And that's what, or finding a shortcut to everything. Uh, Sometimes finding a shortcut can be seen as being smart, but sometimes finding a shortcut is also like, uh, I don't want to stay in long enough to do well and challenge myself. So that's also something that I find very commonly. The
uh,
third thing, let me just add one more and then I'll let you come in. I think the third thing that I find again very interesting is that, or worrying in a way, uh, is how much we, um, how as a, um, how should I say it? So while we are really willing to pay money to our top talent, the talent that is much down below, I don't think we compensate them enough. Um, and which again leads to a certain kind of attitude towards work and organizations. And the other thing is that, today, if you advertise, and this is something I've seen for so many years, um, and we are one of the most populous nations in the world, if not the most populous nations in the world. It is sad that we actually do not get the right people for the job. So we are educated, we are populous, we have people, and yet you can, almost every job, you don't have the right skilled people and the right attitude people. So it's a, in a way, a paradox,
Okay.
and that's an issue.
ma'am, same thing about the paradox I want to ensure. Like, we have learned so many things. Kiritsu management system of Japan, how they manage people. We have the USA management system, German management system. But in India, I have never been heard a system being developed for a particular management style. Like you say, that we are not developing a culture in a management style. We are just building the companies which are earning a billions, but we are not bringing that culture in our organization. So what you say, I mean, what hurting us, you are not getting that holistic culture in all across the companies, or you can say organization, which will say that yes, it's our organization and we have to for that, means that urge, what stopping Indians to doing that?
So what you said is both true and false to some extent. One of the qualities that I find which is very amazing in India is that there is what is this whole idea of, I will take care of you, right? I may not take care of you by paying you every day or whatever it is, but in case there is a problem,
Problem.
the organization is not quickly going to wash their hands off the people, right? One 9/11 doesn't mean huge layoffs in an organization, right? So when 9/11 happened, Boeing actually just laid off people because they said there aren't enough people flying. And this was like less than 6 months or 8 months, right? On the other hand, when we've had economic meltdowns, the the business owners in Surat, the diamond polishing and all of that, have actually said, okay, we will retrain our people during this time. We don't have enough work, but this is like a free time for us to be able to train people. So if you see, there is a difference, right? If you remember the Taj, incident that
Yes,
happened
sir.
September 26th, again, they did not fire people. They didn't say, okay, we have no guests any longer, so lots of very few guests. So I think our sustaining of business is much higher, right? We are conscious about the lives of people who work for us. But on a daily basis, are we pushing people enough? Are we getting them to do their best? Is definitely something that we don't do very often. Also, I I don't think there can be a universal organizational culture, right? In even Japan or US, I think what we read is a very small part of what what is maybe actually happening. So, for example, I can't have the same culture in an institution or a university as I possibly need to have in a school, or as I need to have in a manufacturing versus a service, or a service versus a product company, right? So there are multiple kinds of organizations divided by size, by the sector, by sometimes even where they're located. If you're in Delhi as compared to if you're in Chennai, you will have to have a different culture for the organization, right? Because so I don't think we need to look for one culture, but I think we definitely need to look for how do we what is our value proposition, right? How do we treat our people? What do we look at it? And that is more important than anything else. Is there a uniquely Indian way? There can't be, because India is too many Indians, right? We're a diverse nation. Um, People who grow up in the eastern part of the country are very different from the people who grow up in the western part of the countries. So I don't think we even need to aspire for an Indian culture, Indian of culture. But I think what we need to definitely look at is how do we create conditions, and how do we look at the people we employ so that we can actually have them being more productive.
You
Uh,
mentioned, yeah, you were
whatever.
sorry for
No, 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 she didn't. Yeah.
Ma'am, I was saying previously that somehow in this new generation of people, that shortcut to success is something very ideal, and the outward projection of their image in the life or in the society is much more important to what their inner health is. So we have recently seen that there is a quite a staggering rise in the social media and the selfies and the constant visibility, which is quite very evident within the Gen Z community. So, like, they have this mind framework as to how am I looking, who am I really, and what kind of picture am I exposing to the outward world. So, based on the current, mindsets that the younger generation has, are we becoming more self-aware, or are we just becoming more self-conscious?
Okay, so three words: self-aware, self-conscious, and self-projection, right? So there are three kinds of things that we can look at. Now, I think, and I've been thinking about this. Are the younger people likely to more self-project? Um, maybe not. I think it's also how we look at it, right? So many of you, when you possibly first got your camera and you got exposed to, let us say, uh, some of the social media channels, it's like a playground, right? You're going to play with it. But are most of you going to keep doing the same? I'm not sure, because I think at some point you will realize it's too, it's too empty, it's too boring, it's not me, or whatever it is. So that's what the self-expression is. But since there are so many people who keep joining this particular group of people who get the first camera and the first introduction to social media,
Idea.
it looks like this generation does it. I think everyone goes through a period where they just go crazy about it. They really like play with it. It's like, when you have a new toy, you play, and then you forget it. Maybe what we are seeing a little bit is that. Yeah, that whole playing with the toy, and then I don't think I see some people who continue to post or do reels or whatever, but a large number actually stop doing it after a while. Yeah, and I think that's therefore I'm not sure if it's a generation thing. I think when people did not have these toys and they had something else to do it, they possibly did more of that. And today, this is what you do. Tomorrow, there'll be a new medium. People will, be more using it. So I don't know if it has to anything to do with generation. It's just about the toy that you have, right? It's just about self-expression at that point of time, playing with it. And only when you play with it, at some point you realize, is this for me or is this not for me? Am I going to, keep doing it all the time, or am I not going to do it all the time? So that is one aspect of it. So if we really think about it logically, and maybe we should study it. I'm really doing it at a thought level at this point of time. How many people continue to do this after, let's say, 2 years? Maybe the first 2 years you do it very differently. 2 years later, you have a different relationship with the whole media. Or the whole, selfies and so on and so forth. That is one. The second is, um, um, I think it's a human need to connect, yeah, to have relationships with people, and the how I will connect and how I will relate will be defined by the current context, and therefore maybe the current context is about doing a meetup or a impromptu group rather than going out to a tapri and having chai. And maybe that's also true, right? You can't whatever works, because people have to connect and they'll connect in one way or the other. And awareness, on the other hand, comes from really distancing myself from what happened or what is happening to how I'm thinking about this whole thing. So, in a way, in the moment or at that point of time, or sitting for a little while, or reflecting, or being mindful, or thinking about my thinking, are some of the ways in how people become aware of themselves. And are we more self-aware? I think that's a journey. I don't think anybody is less or more because of generation. But I think we recognize that self-awareness is something that definitely has benefits. People recognize that if I'm self-aware, I'm less likely to repeat the same mistakes. I'm less likely to get into automatic judgments of what the situation is. So yes, it's a skill. Are people who are older or younger more of it? I don't think so. I think all of this is a learning that people have to do in all of this. So yeah, maybe a long answer to your question, but that's what I think it is.
Ma'am, the same part is like I just want to intervene. Sorry for that. Uh, s- I think self-awareness, what you say, how we can actually gain it, because we used to say, think, or like we used to listen that self-awareness came from the you do a lot of things, and when you get age, you get it gets with your time. And I have read the Kaplan has same type of definition that you have so much experience than you have. But the boredom is thing is real. When we do so much of thing in our time, after time we get bored. So in a behavior session, you are from psychology, so how you say that we as a students or as a young generation should get out of this and to make ourselves productive, how to get ourselves distracted from this boredom?
Mm, it's whatever narrative we tell ourselves is what we become. Hmm? If I start telling myself, oh, I'm too tired, hmm, then what happens? I really feel tired, right? If I say to myself that, I'm a little fatigued, I'm going to lie down for 10 minutes and then get up and have the energy, then I have that, right? Yeah. if I really think that I'm bored, and I've heard a lot of people say this, that I'm bored, right? So what do you do about it? Yeah. Do you expect somebody else to entertain you, or do you do something about changing that for yourself? So this whole external reflection, right? That I'm bored and you do something to entertain me, or I'm bored and I need to, watch something to entertain, to get out of the boredom, is right, likely saying that, I'm hungry and you feed me.
Okay.
Well, if you are 2 years old, that makes sense. But if you're 20 years old, that doesn't make sense,
Doesn't make
right?
sense.
Right? It doesn't make sense. So yeah, maybe when you are, when a 7-year-old boy or girl says, I'm bored, and they don't know what to do with it, we will help them to look at, how do you get out of this situation? How do you use your mind to help you to get out of it? But I think what is fascinating to me is that, uh, even in sometimes in our classes we see that, um, when the conversation becomes, let us say, a little jaded, right? No conversation is always going to be like going up, 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 right? There is going to be a down and something like that. Or when somebody is asking a question that I don't really agree with, students will have this expression of, this is too boring. Yeah. And then rather than staying with it, rather than mentally thinking about, okay, how do I make it fun? Right? What do I do to change it for myself? What people do is they turn to the phone, right? Because then something else can be used as a crutch to uh, unbore me. Yeah. And then again, in 10 minutes time, that is boring. Then I go back to, so in a
Classes.
way, the more I give agency for stimulation to something else, the more I'm going to. I mean, it's then that it's not a cycle that can be broken very easily. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah.
We, I mean, we like to move forward on this. So, within the term that questions that we have arose in this very segment, the main section comes is psychological safety in a way. So, given the current, situations in the global world, what do you think is the psychological safety? Does it actually has taken a form of a global safety benchmark, and are the Indian organizations truly ready for it?
You know, Psychological safety as a concept is a group concept. Hmm? Right now, the four of us are a group, and are we feeling safe with each other? And it has to be co-created. If you feel unsafe with me, then you either have to be able to say to me that you're doing this or saying this or being in this way makes me feel unsafe. As so that is, and then I have to be able to respond to it, or for me to say, by being so direct in your question, I'm feeling like you're attacking me, and then you, for being able to explain it back to me, is what is psychological safety. So psychological safety is a group concept. It is an emergent concept. It emerges. It's not like I can say, okay, as a group, you have to be safe at 5. That is not how it happens. It happens, it's emergent, it is interactional, it is in the group. Hmm? So psychological safety is not something that I can say can happen at nation levels and so on and so forth. But yes, there is possibly an interplay of what voice can be heard and what can't be heard. Who can talk, who can't talk, whose voice is seen as more important than the other. And I think there is a certain withholding of sharing of what I'm thinking, because either it is appearing too offensive or dangerous to me. If I take a particular stance on a particular topic, that gets remembered 5 years later as well, and it is used to then judge me and so on and so forth. And that would make me be very careful in what I will say and where I will see it, which means there is also, to some extent, lesser courage that is being shown by most people, right? Those are the things that are definitely happening at this point of time globally, because there are too many powerful people. The technology it makes it possible to witch hunt, to remember things forever. There is no place to hide, and there is also sometimes the technology is used to amplify certain voices and really quash certain voices, and all of that. This makes us feel like there isn't room for my view, and that can make me less safe, or make me um, um, less easy in the environment, right? So that is what is definitely happening at the national, at the international and the global level. And instruments such as visas and travel and all of that are being can be denied because of what you said and how you said it and so on and so forth. And sometimes I might be such a small fry in all of this that I really have no way to even ask or stand up for what I want in that sense. And I think the concentration of wealth in smaller and smaller portions of people is another reason why there is possibly a greater emergence of who uh, will have what kind of experience in the world. So that's something that definitely is something that we need to possibly think about.
Yeah. Similar,
And,
ma'am.
and it's not optimistic, I'm sorry, but that's what some
That's
of it is.
such is life. Ma'am, I'd like to ask you a question. Adding to this psychological safety, your life in general has a extensive levels of travel from Punjab to Rourkela, Bhubaneswar, then to you travel to Baroda and then to Canada and then back to Ahmedabad. uh, when we move from city to city and even from one country to another, there's a change in the dynamics. There's a change in the local people and how they approach each other. So, have you ever come across certain situations where you had to think about that psychological safety, as you mentioned that psychological safety arises from a group. So, what kind of experiences you had in that realm, if I ask?
Um, my experience is that, and I say this very often, um, as long as we can be open, curious, and interested genuinely in the other, um, whatever happens seems like a blip, right? So yes, there have been, in all my travels, and these are not the only places I've traveled to. I've really, really traveled extensively under multiple kinds of situations. So from fully business class to completely economy class to completely, like, 50, $20 a day kind of travel. I've done all kinds of travel. Yeah. Um, I can say for sure that in all of this, and it's not like, everybody has always had welcoming arms and people have been curious and so on and so forth. So there have been periods of loneliness. There have been periods of like, oh gosh, why am I doing this? And what if, what if something happens to me? All of that. But I think those have been much fewer than the positive experiences that I have had in stranger countries, in stranger places, in stranger things. Because I think at the end of the day, people are very similar in, like, the common person on the road is not hateful, is not out there thinking, why you this and that. They're curious. They're making their ends meet. They're happy to have a, help you if you need. They're happy to have a conversation with you if you're open to it. And very often, 30, 40 minutes into the conversation, you will see that there are multiple similarities between you and the person, even though you might be like in your looks, in your geography, in your culture, in everything, you're very different. But there are very common things that people struggle with and people work with, and you can bond over those. And yes, I have been in places where I have really felt like, you know, um, how come? And are they responding to me as a, as a brown-skinned Indian or whatever it is? But if I'm able to get past that fear, and if I'm able to stay and not get overly impacted by that, I think I always find that, you know, things happen for the best. And I'll give you a simple story, a story from my very early on travel. So I'd gone to Turkey, I'd gone to Istanbul for a conference, and I really had very little resources at that point of time. And so I was staying in a university guest house where nobody spoke English. I actually didn't even know that that there was a place in the world where, at that point of time, now I know for sure, but there was a place in the world that, there was so little English spoken, so that I couldn't really communicate. And so I was, and I'm a vegetarian. So I went down the hostel because I was hungry. And I went to a street where there were little restaurants and little places. And I tried to tell them I want vegetarian food. And I think and this I'm saying, um, when is this? 30 years ago. Yeah. So really 30 years ago. So everybody on this, I went to one restaurant, I tried to tell him no meat, no, only vegetables, blah, blah, blah. He didn't understand. He said, you go to that person, maybe he will understand. So I must have gone down that lane to 10 different shops trying to get food because everything looked very different. So this one guy, he, one of the restaurant owners, he said, we tried to have a conversation. He couldn't understand me. There was no Duolingo at that point of time, no Google Translate, nothing, right? So he says, he held my hand and he took me to the kitchen and he said, tell me what you will eat out of it, right? So he showed me the ingredients. So I saw there was cheese, there was flour, and there was milk. Yeah. I said, these three things I can eat. The rest, everything was, had meat. There was meat in it. Okay, he said, go, sit. So I went and sat in his restaurant and he made me, I think, the yummiest bread that I've ever eaten, right? So in 20 minutes, he made me something with the flour, milk, and cheese. And that was my dinner that night, right? And then he gave me some chai. That's what they drink, black tea. He gave me black tea. He gave me this, and then when I tried to pay him, he wouldn't take money. Yeah, he was like, I'm a guest. But all right, so that happened, and so every day then it was very easy. I only had to go to that shop, and seeing me, he would go into the kitchen and he'd make something. And every day he would make something different. Yeah, some of the same ingredients, but tasted a little different. And in the same city, in Istanbul, I was waiting at a post office trying to buy a card that I could send to a friend. And as I waited in the post office and I came out, there was a long line. I came out of the post office and I put my hand in my bag and all my money was gone. So somebody had taken all my Turkish money, and Turkish money was liras. It was some 100,000 liras for which was $1. I had it all in one envelope, and all of it was gone. Yeah. So anyway, I went to the police station. The police kind of explained to me in Turkish that nothing can be done about this. You've lost your money. Um, and then the third incident in the same city. So in the same city was I was in the bus and I really couldn't figure out where to get off. So the whole bus got involved in trying to tell me where to get off. Then there was a woman who kind of called me. She said, "Sit with me," completely non-verbal, and I will tell you where to get off. So we got off at the place. She got on a cab, and in the cab, she drove me to my hostel um, because she felt that that's how she needed to take care of me. So you can see the range of behaviors in the same city,
City.
right? Somebody stole my money. Somebody actually, took me in a cab and dropped me. Complete stranger. We exchanged addresses. She actually sent me a Sufi painting back to India when I reached home. And then there was this group of people, like small shopkeepers, who got together to make sure that I was fed. Yeah, and yeah, and that's human. That's what happens when you travel. Was I safe? Yes, I was safe. Did I feel scared? Yes, I felt scared. Did I feel lonely at times? Yes, I did. When I'd gone from one shop to the other and I couldn't communicate with them, I was like, what will I eat? Will I get anything to eat here or something, right? So that fear as well. All of that, that's travel, right? And that's humans. That's how people are, and cultures and societies are. And I can go on. I have so many stories of travel, which are where there is the best and the worst that happens on the same day.
On a personal note, I must say that I can very much relate to it. During 2017, I traveled to Norway, Oslo, for BI Norwegian Business School for my BBA. And on the first day, I reached there early in 4:30 a.m. in the morning, and I had classes at 9. So I quickly somehow asked the instructions on how do I reach the Daikonvien, which is the place where I was to reside. And when I reached the campus and I wanted that, okay, let's grab a bite to eat. And I'm a complete pure vegetarian, don't eat, at that time, didn't even eat, onions and garlic. So I was trying to move from, there are several canteens over there. I was asking them, what can I eat for vegetarian? And the problem was that I faced that they were not speaking English at all. And I was going under the promise that, okay, I learned a little bit about the Norwegian language, but since the classes would be conducted in English, so I'll manage and I'll learn out that over time.
Hmm.
The such situation so much escalated that they were like rice cakes over there. So I thought, okay, when these are rice cakes, I can definitely eat them because it was mentioned rice cakes. Then I thought that, okay, let's ask him that I'm vegetarian or so on. So student from the Indian origin, he was from Bhatinda. So he came for his research. And I asked him that, okay, can I eat this? Yeah, you should ask him over there. So he said that, okay, this is stuffed with beef, this is stuffed with pork. And I ended up eating just some salad, which was like, it felt like this is not a salad like we Indians used to have. It almost felt like, okay, it's been served to a cow or something like that. I'm just eating it. So, yeah, that's very relatable.
Yes, food is always an issue.
Yes, sir. So on
And
a
food is also the way you relate to each other. Yeah.
also, on a personal note, that when you remove all the titles, the professor, the author, the expert, who are you inside, your family? Like, are you the strict one, the soft one, the problem solver, the secret rebel, the one who is the almighty and sort of a wise person who sort of creates a balance? As an individual, where do you see yourself? if I may ask?
Well, I'm all of them.
Oh, complete package.
Yeah, all of them. Some days I am the one who's, who needs to be pampered, and there are some days that I'm the one who is taking care, and some days I'm the wise one, and some days I'm the one who can't understand a thing. Some days I'm the one who's holding the family together, and some days I'm not capable of doing it for whatever reasons. So I think we're not one person, right? I'm all of them. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I think words or things that will define me is I'm somebody who is definitely excited to learn. It's really something that's very basic to me. I love when I can learn and observe and all of that. Um, I think I'm somebody who thrives very well when I can care for others around me and be kind and help them. And I thrive in situations where, um, I can, where it's peaceful. Um, yeah, so definitely peace is important, like not too much conflict. I don't like it. Yeah, all
Yes, ma'am.
right.
Yes, sir.
Great. So it was really lovely having this conversation. I hope you got what you wanted.
Indeed, ma'am.
Ma'am, in DPM, a small, we have a dicey rounds.
Okay.
So, Srijan, I think you must start with the dicey round so that we can have the exact thing we want.
Okay. So these dicey rounds are a bit, ma'am, might be a bit shaky in uh, approach. So we therefore request your discussion. And ma'am, we begin with the sharp, dicey question. So these are short answers, short question answers based. So is productivity paranoia the new pandemic in workplaces?
No, I don't think so. I
Are
don't.
okay. Are companies over romanticizing culture while under investing in it?
Possibly.
AI is entering the HR and leadership. Can AI ever, understand the human behavior accurately, and we ever be able to surpass the AI?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Uh, well, when with AI becoming generative and agentic, I don't know. And I still don't think so. I think the human brain is much more complex and able to, get where nobody else can get.
And what's the biggest myth about employee engagement programs?
Um, that it is easy to fix and it's easy to measure. It's not.
Are the Indian organizations ready for a 4-day work week, given that
Um,
it is justified by the entrepreneurs that 70-hour is the key to success?
um, uh, I don't know Indian organizations, but maybe some organizations might be.
And first word that comes to your mind when you hear the Gen Z at work?
Um, the first word, my God, uh, over-connected to some extent, or and completely distanced. So it's not one word. Hmm.
One
So
leadership, yeah,
yeah,
please.
let me think about it again. First word that comes to me when I think of Gen Z. Hmm. Distanced.
Okay.
Distance. And when why? Because we are not Gen Z, we are the X, but still we have the juniors who are going to be Gen Zs. So
Yeah, well, really, I find it very difficult to understand what is going on in their heads.
okay.
So difficult to understand, maybe.
One leadership myth you wish we could delete from all the management books overnight.
That leaders are experts and leaders have to know everything.
If you had to describe today's corporate culture in one Hindi word, what would it be?
I don't know.
One thing Indian organizations do better than the Western ones, and one thing we badly, have not been able to do to learn from them.
So as I said, I think we take care of our employees when the going is not very good, and so it's not a transactional relationship. What we could learn from everyone else is meticulous planning.
If you had to design a course called Life Skills 101 for young professionals, what will be the first module?
Um, Awareness and acceptance of emotions.
A habit that has quietly protected your mental health over the decades.
Sleep.
If you could give one empathy challenge to every manager listening today, what would you ask them to try for the next 7 days?
Um, just think about the world, about people who are next to you. What what's their story? What's their struggle and where they're coming from?
Last one of this segment. When you look at the future work in India, would you what words do you come to mind? Is it more hopeful, more worried, or more curious?
Well, I'll go for the safer option, curious.
One last question, although it's not part of the rapid fire. Are you familiar with the government of India's latest push in the Indian knowledge system?
Yes, I am.
So based on that, what do you think is the adoption challenges of the philosophies like we've been taught in the Taitri Samhitas or the Gitas of the Antarmukh, like looking towards inside to find the questions that are there in the world. So what do you think on that?
My sense is we need to, I mean, of course, some of these philosophies are deep, they're rich, they're complex, and they're very, very well developed. But I don't think we have enough, I don't know, enough people who really understand it to be able to then modularize it to make it available to us. So on one hand, there is the scholar who knows everything, and then on the other hand, we've not simplified it enough for a lot of people to be able to access it and use it.
Yeah, so with this, ma'am, we conclude our little discussions. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your time
Great.
with us. It was absolutely a pleasure hearing from you. We have, heard about your greatness for quite a lot from our own faculty member,
Oh no.
Dr. So thank you so much, ma'am, and we leave this conversation. Please wait for a commemorative, photo. So
Sure. And I wish you all the best in
Thank you.
everything. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.